Right, so welcome. This is a first of a series of four webinars. We're going to talk about data mesh and the different pillars in data mesh and how you can think about that in application to your real life problems that you may have in your data sets inside your organization, and also from the Erwin perspective, how the Erwin toolset can help you build out a data mesh solution. My name is Neil Strange. I'm a sort of physicist, science by background, but I've been in consultancy all my life, working in various roles, both in IT and management consultancy. And I love BI because it's somewhere in the middle between both management and IT. And I've been specializing in data platforms for quite a few years now. Richard, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. My name is Richard Adams. I've spent most of my career roles in the finance and the pharmaceutical industry, and for the last 5 years or more working for Erwin by Quest, who provide solutions for a number of different challenges which I used to have in that previous life. So I think we should have a good conversation today about the way that data mesh should be implemented. And we've got a few different talking points to go through. So next slide.
I think we're going to chat generally through this. It's good that you've been poacher turned gamekeeper, or is it the other way around? I'm not sure. So first thing is a running order. If anyone wants to make any comments or ask questions, we're running to a half-hour schedule here. So please use the chat and we'll try to get round to them at the end of the presentation. If not, we'll try and answer those offline for you and send you an email with the answers in them. We're going to talk as we go anyway, and hopefully provide you with some useful information. Now, for those of you who need reminding, you probably don't need reminding, you're all very familiar with data mesh. But data mesh has four principles or four pillars on which it rests. One is data as a product. In other words, starting to take the data output in your organization as a little bit more seriously and putting some product management framework around that. Second of which is the domain-driven ownership of data. So breaking your data in your organization, your enterprise data, into a number of different domains and having different teams working inside each domain as a whole. Then we've got federated computational governance. This is looking at the governance across the whole. So while you're decentralizing, in one sense, you need to have the ability to provide some centralized control and to underpin that as much as possible with automation to support the monitoring of standards and rules and policies that are in place. And then finally, underpinning all of this, providing self-serve data platforms so that as your domain ownership teams start to work, they have platform components that they can just access and use and build off the shelf rather than having to invent their own development environments and suite of packages that they need to run their particular area. So they all fit together as a whole and become the foundation of the data mesh approach to data management. So today's focus is data as a product. So we're going to a little bit of a dive into here about how this might apply to your organization or an organization in general, and how Erwin can support that as a product. So I've been looking around for a good definition of data or data products, and this one for me resonates the most, I think. You can read this as well as me, but I'll read it out anyway. We've got a governed unit of data designed to be used and reused by various stakeholders. So this could be any packet of data flowing through your organization. It could be sourced from a system, so system output. It could be flowing into your analytics tools. It could be inside your data warehouse as well. The key thing in there is it's governed. It's a unit of data, so it's got a boundary around it. and it's designed for use. So it's designed for an end user to make use of it, to do something in their organization, to do something useful. Now, the term data product has really been popularized by data mesh. I think it's really an evolution of kind of what we've been doing all along in the analytics space. So we have data marts, presentation layers, various other titles, star schemas, and so forth. And I think data product, I like it as a term. I think it's more powerful than these terms, and I think it represents a more modern view and cut on how you should manage your data products. And yeah, it's not new. It's not new as a concept, really, but I think it's been formalized and properly documented inside the data mesh method. And if you read the book, you'll find a whole chapter dedicated to that. Then the other thing is that I think when you start to use the term data platform, data platform, data product, it brings in a lot of useful baggage with it. I mean, the software development colleagues of ours building apps have had the concept of product for quite some time that they work to, and product gives you the impression that the data itself needs a product owner, that it needs a stakeholder in charge that uses this data, that the product itself has a life cycle attached to it, and that it has a backlog of tasks that need to be performed on it. In other words, a data product is never quite finished. It's always got things that need to be done to it, always things that keep it up to speed and keep it up to what the business needs for it. I mean, Richard, would you like to add any comment there on that?
Yes. When I worked for some of the different companies I worked for in the past as a consumer, I wanted to know some critical information about the different products, as we're calling them here, but really it could have been integrations or dashboards or reports, anything like that, which I needed for a particular purpose. So I needed something that had a clear definition. What is it there for? Who's created it? I wanted to know that it was compliant with any of the different laws and best practices at the company. I wanted to know where the data is coming from, so that provenance, what ingredients have gone into that particular product. I'd want to know that the quality is good. The live data is actually of a standard which is going to be useful to me. And then with those components there, I wanted some kind of certification that somebody at a certain level had said, that's the one that we should be using. I don't want to be tapping into old legacy systems. I want to be using a proper source of truth for this information. It's kept to a high standard. So the wish list, I think, for me at least, has been consistent throughout the years I've worked in this space. But this is a way of making this a bit more formal, a bit more well-defined. And that's why the book is obviously very helpful. I don't get on that, by the way, but the book is helpful. And the solutions that we provide are quite helpful in bringing that together into a way that it's accessible for a lot of different people. So absolutely, the structure to this is very, very helpful.
Okay, so let's move on a bit. Got a few more pictures to cover off in the time frame. This is the relationship between the various pillars that are there. So data is the product in the middle, but it relies on the governance to enforce things like data contracts, standards, findability of the data. It uses a domain-driven ownership. Whenever a data crosses the boundary of a domain, between domains for a flow, that's when your data products come in. So you're defining all the interactions between the domains through there. And finally, it uses the self-service data platform as the mechanism to version control and publish and access and find those products. So they are dependent on each other, and that does mean that if you're tooling up here, you need to have a tool that's interoperable with everything else inside this ecosystem, so that they can properly collaborate. Now, I think it's best if we start talking about an example here, so that we've got something more concrete to put our finger on. This is a real client. I can't release the name of the client, unfortunately, but I'll give you a flavour of the challenges inside this client. So we have a business that does case handling. It gets incidents reported into it, it handles the incident in some way, and it resolves them out the far end. So this is the sort of level zero process model for that business. But what complicates the business is they have a whole variety of external organizations that they can delegate out to handle those cases for them. They monitor how well those organizations are performing to make sure that certain service levels are hit in terms of closing down these cases. So you could see this being, something like a claims management process, or a software bug reporting and fixing process, anything like that. And if you drill down inside, these are the sort of main systems that they have in place. So they have more than one case management system running. They've got some document management. They have SharePoint in there to cope for the parts of the case management that doesn't support their process. So they run their processes through SharePoint where they have to. They have Active Directory in there to provide a layer of security and access rules. And finally, all of their suppliers have their own individual case management systems. So quite a few of them feeding data in, monitoring data around the cases. And all this goes into an analytics area, which is a data warehouse. And out of that, they pump information for the executives, line management, QA, and disclosure teams to work with. Okay, so what they're doing, these cases have potential legal impact, so disclosure is important if things go to court. Fairly traditional sort of warehousing structure here. But if you start to look at what we need to do for a mesh, the issues they have currently in there, things like, I'm sure you've seen this in your organizations as well, but users aren't used to always going to the warehouse for data, so they can go anywhere. They extract data from source systems, they source their own data for themselves from the suppliers, a bit ungoverned, chaotic, and so on. Excel spreadsheets everywhere, holding copies of raw data. There's over 1,000 reports in Power BI, and it's growing at a regular rate. And if you talk to anyone that uses those reports, every report's essential. Can't be sure. No usage logging, so not much information about which reports are more popular than others. No idea how much each report costs. And the analytics team are just taking orders from the business, and very busy, but always with a big backlog of work to be done. I see this everywhere, and given the background here, how could a data product approach to resolve this? So one way is to start looking at the data domains that come out here. Now, Data Mesh talks about source domains and aggregated or analytic domains. So we have on the left here source domains. So these are representative of the source systems. So they're very sort of physically oriented around the processes and the applications that are running there. Those would hold data extracts from those systems as needed downstream, and keeping the existing sort of analytics in place, keeping a warehouse in place, we can define these data products going out the far end, different domains for executives, line managers, case managers, and the document management team. Okay, so start to introduce these domains. Within a domain, there's a number of different products. So you could see in the case management domain, maybe an activity log, so everything that's happened on every activity, a status snapshot report, information about the parties who are working on a case to go into resource planning, and maybe a costing data set that would allow them to track the costs on each case there. Okay, there'll be more, maybe less in there, but those are the big ones that are needed downstream for consumption. Okay, and if you then start to put these together, you end up with the beginnings of a sort of controlled data product set that will be used across this architecture. So every one of these data domains would have a similar set of data products within them. So one of the first issues we come across is we get this issue of lineage and audit. So for example, you might get we've had this in some of our clients we work with. You know, a manager will sit in a meeting and say, I have data in the system about me. Show me my information. Show me how my information finds its way into this data set that I'm looking at. And being able to unpick that and getting some lineage together is very important. So, Richard, any thoughts here?
Yeah, so a number of thoughts, to be honest. There's in the constructs of these different products, I'd be thinking about how they forensically flow anyway. So we have in our solution the ability to reverse engineer the metadata from the sources that exist, the ETL code and the BI reports and those movements. So we can bring that out into our solution, our data catalog solution, which can then be looked at a very detailed column level across the whole architecture. Now, if I was looking at this holistically, I'd then be thinking about all the people producing the data, maybe third parties, or you're producing content through a portal of some sorts. You could start to think about them being products in the raw data product sense. You might then have in that center of the screen something around like a source of truth, perhaps, for data, and then before you then start deriving analytical products.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was to this out, I'd be thinking, okay, so I don't know what products are. I might be able to forensically look at the landscape and say, well, this is what queries are running, or there's a lot of similarities with institutions. So that commonality might then mean that this is a data product that maybe the business need. Mm-hmm. People running these queries or who are listed accountable might then be the owners of this that we need to talk to advise it.
Yeah.
And when we're looking at determining those thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of reports which are around the business, there might be a situation where you can look at that commonality and say, right, well, that's a product, but we don't want to then certify all of the different reports around the organization and say everyone can use these. We want to try and cut some of this down. We want to have these products as unique with clear accountability and the right way to access them. So then having a means of defining them and then certifying them and then removing the redundancies might be a better approach. And then you can maybe cut some of the different things you don't need. Obviously, that influences the efficiency of the headcount. Lots of different ways to improve the organization. So use logic, use the forensics, use the automation tools that we have to build out that one.
Have a look at that. I mean, we have a snapshot here from the ONDI tool, which provides quite rich lineage analytics. So you can scrape the whole thing end to end, can't you? You can use, it'll look at the flow, so it'll unpick the ETL tools and understand the logic inside the ETL to understand that flow as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've got different connectors for different technologies, but the outcome is the same in the sense that this interactive lineage program is consistent for the different users and available to the broader business, depending on the access you give. The impact assessment on the bottom right there, that allows you to run a very detailed impact assessment as it sounds, upstream and downstream from when you're managing different changes. So if you were to change a particular product or a dashboard or a table, then you know who's going to be receiving that data and what that cause might be. So that when you're talking change management or incident management, that's incredibly valuable.
I agree with you here. I think it's column level as well, which is great. And yeah, I've using a tool like this, if you're doing a migration, is incredibly valuable because you can take a snapshot before and after and verify that you've had no data loss in that migration. Let's move on. The other thing we have to do with data products is we have to make sure they're specified. So there's some policy needed around them in terms of standards that need to be set. The spec itself of the product, so we know what is the content of it, what do the data sets mean, the columns mean, and so on. And potentially a service level agreement as well in terms of when it's going to be produced, the the degree of how up to date the data should be, whether missing columns should be permitted, and so on in there. And this takes a bit of overhead to put in place. So you can't be having thousands of these data products flowing around because of the overhead of documenting all of those. And this naturally squashes the number of flows that you would have across the organization, which is a good thing, I think. I think you wanted to talk a bit through how that might work inside Erwin.
Yes, so when you've got a product defined within the Erwin Data Intelligence suite that we have, you have all these different properties you can put in, tags and classifications and accountability. That's all custom depending on the different companies we're working with. So there's a trend of best practice, but then a strong level of customization depending on how you would like to build this out. So yeah, there's a lot of those different attributes which are successful through the constructs we have.
Yeah, I find this quite useful, and I know within the tool as well, you can link data items up to policies and up to glossary terms and so on as well, which gives you a way of analysing not the impact in terms of lineage, but also impact in terms of which policies apply to the that particular data.
That's typically we call the vertical lineage, the way that you can use our mind maps to say this product must comply with this policy, or this is the business term definition, or the business terms applying to the column of data which exists on the IT landscape. So building those narratives around compliance and overlaying what should be happening on the glossary to opens up all sorts of conversations about for the better of the organization.
Okay, good. All right, let's move on. And I think another area, sort of third point I'd like to make in here is you will still have a number of data products out there. And a common problem I see in organizations is that two teams invent the same data report, neither knowing the other exists. So you may have, for example, a team at the top there with a case parties report. They're using it for some resource planning. Team B thinks they need a similar information, so they commission or develop their own separate report or separate data product that overlaps considerably with the original one. Now, I guess in large organizations, this is possibly inevitable. It's going to happen at some point, but it's not a good thing because you're going to have two versions of the truth circulating around, possibly being, as I said, dumped into Excel spreadsheets and further analysed and then taken on to meetings where decisions are being made. And what we need to be doing is trying to intercept these where they happen and make sure that that a common data set's produced that's useful for both consumers. So I've seen this happen a number of times, and there's always been a big oh moment when we see this happening and think of the wasted effort that's gone into this. So a lot of organizations are putting in these data catalogs or data marketplaces to help data product marketplaces so that the owners of these data products can post them up there and make them findable. So if a team is wanting to produce data, the first thing they do is go to the marketplace and search for the information they need. And then through that marketplace, they can bid for access to that data set and providing a degree of governance over whether they are allowed to see that data or not, or whether certain columns in that data set may need to be hidden for data protection purposes. I know the Erwin product set has a marketplace there. So Richard, if you'd like to add any comments to that.
Yes, absolutely. So we have this interactive portal where anyone can search for anything, including all the different data products which have been defined. It brings everything together. You can shop like you might shop on any other, Amazon style website. There's these scoring mechanisms to use to compare how good or bad things are. So when I say that, I mean you're looking at this graded bronze, silver, gold approach where the quality of the live data is included, how well documented things are, and this subjective rating of this TripAdvisor style rating of the different products is seen. So where people who own the products Are they getting feedback from the broader business as to how well it's being received? Is it fit for purpose? Is it well documented? Is it useful to them? And then you can react to that, the unknown unknowns that can then be dealt with. So this certification of how everything's put together and understood is really for the broader business. So that's what we've got as an offering.
Good. All right. So we're almost on time now. So we're running a second session on the 17th of September. We're going to look at the domain-oriented architecture. So it's something that Erwin Data Modeler particularly is good at supporting, and the data intelligence as well. And if anyone would like a demonstration of the Erwin data intelligence functionality, then or further discussion about data mesh, then please let us know, and we'll be in touch with you to ask if you would like to have a demonstration. Richard, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think our approach is often that we want to understand the different challenges that our customers have. Be empathetic to work out how we can tailor make the right solution to the right challenges that you're encountering. So that's why we have these discovery calls. It's why we have webinars and events, so that we can get to know you and you can challenge us on how we would deliver what you need to happen. So don't be shy. Reach out to us and we can have that conversation. Thank you.
Yep. Yes. Okay. Lovely. Thank you very much.